overrun. Inflation is raging. Europe is in chaos. The Middle East is exploding. Iran is emboldened. China is on the march. And the worst, most incompetent person to ever lead this country is dragging us toward World War III. Other than that, I think he's doing a very good job. Do we agree, sir? Other than that, he's doing a fine job. No, he's the worst. Under Biden, illegal aliens are better off. Terrorists are better off. China is better off. Russia is better off. The cartels are better off. But the American people were far better off under a gentleman named President Donald J. Trump. Have you heard of him? Have you heard of him? And in particular, and remember this. Oh, wait a minute. Mike Lindell, please stand up, okay? I just saw him. Stand up. Forget about his pillows. He is the greatest purchaser of advertising in the history of America. If he could buy my ads, I'd be blanketing the airwaves with it. Thank you, Mike. We love Mike. But in particular, Michigan was better off with Trump by a lot. You were doing great. Companies were moving back, and the car companies weren't moving out, and you weren't under a mandate to build all-electric cars, which are going to all be made in China. It's just a question of a few years. For decades before I took office, Joe Biden and his cronies in Washington got rich by selling off Michigan jobs and selling out Detroit. That's what they did. That's why your car business is so far down. You used to have 100% of the car business. Now you're down to probably 30% by comparison to what it was. Crooked Joe backed NAFTA, the worst trade deal we ever had. China's entry into the World Trade Organization, another disaster. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, he wanted that so badly, would have totally destroyed the state. The Paris Climate Accord, where we put up $1 trillion and nobody else puts up anything, one of the most unfair deals. Sounds good, but it was a disaster. And every other globalist disaster that sucked the life and wealth and blood out of our country, and that's what it was doing. But after decades of Joe Biden putting America last, Michigan finally got a president who put America first. That's what happened. That's what happened. I met a lot of people backstage just now, and they're all saying, sir, we were doing so much better 4 years ago. Everybody was. I stood up to the globalists. I stood up to the outsourcers, corporate lobbyists, and special interests. That's why they don't exactly love me, these people. And I live by the motto, promises made, promises kept. I kept all my promises, kept them all. In my first week in office, I terminated TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. Would have destroyed your state, would have really destroyed trade in our country. And I withdrew from the Paris Accord. It was unfair, a disaster. And I ended NAFTA, worst trade deal, and replaced it with the brand new USMCA, that's Mexico, Canada. In fact, that deal is so good, and so good for the American auto worker, that Canada and Mexico are trying to renegotiate it as we speak. They want to renegotiate it. Don't do it, Crooked Joe. Don't do it. You know, if they put up enough for him, he'll do it. I stood up to China like never before, bringing in hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue when no other president had gotten 10 cents from China. Hundreds of billions. I imposed a 27.5% tariff on all Chinese automobiles. The only reason that we still have any auto industry left. If I didn't do that, you would have been wiped out by China completely. By the way, whoever heads the United Auto Workers is doing an absolutely terrible job. His name wouldn't be Sean Fain, would it? Sean Fain. Whoever this guy Sean Fain is, they ought to get him out, because he sold the auto workers down the tubes. They were sold down the river. You won't have any. Yeah, you're fired is right. I screamed at you. Yeah, fired. How bad. He agreed to what Obama wanted to do. Under my leadership, we created 500,000 manufacturing jobs in 3 short years. Remember, Biden and Obama would go around saying, we can't manufacture here anymore. That's because we had stupid people leading our country. We lifted up all Americans, black, brown, white, and everybody else. Everyone was doing better. Everybody was doing great. But now, Crooked Joe is doing a hit job on Michigan manufacturing and on Detroit, the likes of which I have never seen before. You know, I got the Man of the Year in Michigan years ago, long before politics, like 12, 13 years ago. And I said, I came up and I thought the speech was good. It turned out to be very controversial. I said, why are you allowing them to steal your jobs? Why are you doing it? They're coming in these countries and they're taking all your jobs. And right now, Mexico is building the biggest car plants anywhere in the world, and they want to sell the cars back into the United States. They're stealing your jobs. Who would allow that to happen? And you know who owns the car plants being built in Mexico? China! It's crazy. Who would believe it? Thank you. Thank you very much. Low IQ Joe Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate will totally obliterate the U.S. auto industry, and it won't take long. Just so you know, we have the greatest army tanks. I saved it. In Ohio, a plant. When I was president-elect, they said, sir, they want to close our army tank plant. Makes the best tanks in the world. I visited in Lima, Ohio. And I saved it. I said, how can you do this? I looked, the complexity, you'd never be able to build a plant like this. Turned out we made more army tanks than anybody. They did a great job. But they want to make them now electric, so that when you go into enemy territory and you obliterate the enemy and you knock down and those tanks are firing, you do it in a environmentally friendly way. The problem with the army tanks, like cars and like trucks, the problem is that you would have to bring a battery pack along. You're going to pull it like a little wagon, like a child pulls a wagon. So they want to build a army tank, but the battery is very big and very heavy, much heavier than a thing called diesel, much heavier than diesel fuel. And you got to see this tank. It's like a wagon, and there's a big thing that is pulling in the back. And even with that, it doesn't go far, and lots of bad things happen, like it doesn't take cold weather very well, and it's really bad in heat. But it is environmentally friendly, remember that. Of course, making it is an environmental disaster, so that more than makes up for it. And they want to have your jet fighters now. I got more planes. I rebuilt our entire military. They want to make your jet fighters use a fuel that's environmentally friendly, but it makes the plane 18% less efficient. So that's the difference between, in a fight with the enemy, winning and losing, a minor difference. But you go in again, they want to go in a clean, environmental way as we bomb the shit out of a country. Can you believe this? No, who are the people that are destroying? Who are the people that are destroying our country? Thank you very much. Thank you. I feel very young. I feel very young. I don't know what it is, but I feel better than I did 30 years ago. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know. I feel very good. So we can't let these people destroy our country like this. I mean, they're going crazy. Today you read where they don't want to have any water in your dishwasher. So your dishwasher won't work. And they think that's good. So what you do is you keep having it go on and on and on. The electric bill is 10 times more than the water. And these are areas that have so much water, they don't know what to do with it. They're flooding. They're floodplains. They have so much water in many cases. No, we can't do that. You know, I ended that. I went to, in Ohio, a great company was going out of business because of dishwashers. They wouldn't give the water. You couldn't sell the product. And South Korea and China were dumping dishwashers in here for half the cost. They weren't as good. Whirlpool, but half the cost, they weren't as good. And I went and I saved it. I put a 50% and 100% tariff on all of these dumped machines, and I saved that company. And then I said to the head of the company, who was great actually, called me, said, we don't know what to do. You can't, I mean, they're dumping this stuff. They can't be, you know, they're losing a fortune. But it didn't matter because their governments were paying for it. He said, I don't know what to do. I said, it's okay. So I solved the one problem. They're not dumping. What's your next problem? They don't allow us to use water. We need more water. You can't wash dishes unless you have a certain amount of water. I said, how much do you need? We need just a little bit more. He said, I'll give you a lot more. I gave him a lot more. Now they want to end it again. You ever go into a new home where you have a shower where the water doesn't come out of the shower head? They put a restrictor on. I took all the restrictors off. I took them off. I've had the experience. I take a shower. I want that beautiful head of hair to be nice and wet. Lather. I want it to be lathered beautifully. And I get this best stuff you can buy and I dump it all over. And then I turn on the water and the damn water drips out. Takes me. I can't get the stuff out of my hair. It's a horrible thing. No, it's terrible. Oh, you turn on the sink and the faucet. You turn it and no water, practically no water comes. So you leave your hands under there. You're trying to get the water. Well, I revoked all of that stuff and they just put it back on. Isn't that terrible? And these are areas that have a lot of water where they don't know what to do with it. It goes out to sea. And we'll turn it back on the first day. We're going to do a lot of things on the first day. We're going to take care of a lot of problems. First day in office, we're going to close up the border. First day in office, we're going to drill, baby, drill. Thank you very much. Think of it. We built hundreds of miles of wall. It was so great. Mexico is not thrilled. I went to Mexico. I said, you got to take back the people you sent in. They said, no, no. I said, in fact, you have to do more than that. You sent so many people. You have to give us 28,000 soldiers. They said, no, why would we do that? The president, who I liked, actually, he's a socialist, but we got along very well. I got along good with all of them, but that didn't mean they loved my policy. My policy was brutal. I mean, think of it. China never paid us 10 cents, I told you. Now they paid us hundreds of billions, you think? And I like President Xi, but do you think he really likes me too much? In fact, Biden's having a hard time taking off the tariffs because there's so much money coming in. He doesn't know what to do. But he'll do what his communists tell him to do. But think of it. So Mexico said, no, 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 we're not going to give you 28,000. I said, yes, you will, 100%. They said, we're not going to give you. Why would we do that? They laughed at me. They thought, what kind of a person is this that would ask for such a stupid request? I said, no, no, you're going to give it 100%. And I had it out a little bit with the president. I said, listen, you and I are friends. Just send me a negotiator, please. And they sent a man, and you've heard this. I told it a couple of times. A handsome man from Mexico, tall, dark, and handsome. He was wearing the most beautiful suit I've ever seen. And I wanted to ask him, who is your tailor? But I said, that's not a good way to start a negotiation. So I figured I wouldn't do that. I'd skip on his tailor. But I said, listen, we want to give, and I said to the Secretary of State, and I said to people that work in the State Department, give me a best of list, 10 best of. I want your best of, the 10 things that you want. And they wrote 10 things down, and a woman from the State Department, a very nice woman, but a lousy negotiator, she said, for these things for 25 years, you'll never get them. I said, 100% I'll get them. She said, you won't, sir. I said, just sit back and watch. So this gentleman came in with a beautiful suit, handsome guy. And I said to him, I want 28,000 soldiers. I want a thing called remain in Mexico, meaning everybody has to remain in Mexico. They can't come into our country until they're vetted and checked, which was very few people came in. We had the best border in history. Now we have the worst border in the history of the world. But I said, I want 28,000. I want remain in Mexico. Nobody comes in until they're vetted and checked. I want catch and release. You know what catch and release is? We catch and release, and then we release the people into our country. We say, come back in 5 years for a court case, but nobody ever comes back, except for the really stupid ones. Nobody ever comes back. And 7 other things that were worse. And I put the list before him, and he laughed at me. He laughed at me like I was a fool. He laughed at me. I said, do you think I'm a fool? No, sir, but these are foolish things you're asking for. He said, you're going to do it. No, I'm not. I said, you're going to do it 100%. You're sitting there, right? You're going to do it. And now he starts to get a little bit strange because he say, why does this guy have such confidence in this? And I said, you're going to do it? He goes, no way. And I said, way. Then I told him. I said, here's what's happening. If you don't do it, I have before me a document right here. It's right here. And I said, you don't do it, I'm signing this document. This was a Friday afternoon. I said, on Monday morning at 7 o'clock, we're putting on 25% tariffs on everything that comes in from Mexico, including all the cars that you stole from America, all those newly manufactured Mexican cars that come in by the tens of thousands. And then you have 1 month, and it goes to 50%, then it goes to 75, then it goes to 100, and I think I'll stop at 100. And that's many times more than the cost of 28,000 soldiers. And he said, sir, he couldn't breathe. I said, are you okay in that beautiful suit? His suit was getting very damp. I said, are you okay? He goes, oh, and by the way, I have to tell you, I had a great word that I was going to use, but it's a curse word. And I was told by a great evangelical preacher just this week, sir, you tell the greatest stories, you're the greatest everything, but sir, please don't use foul language. And I said, sometimes you need foul language to tell a great story, because there's no words like this. He said, sir, you don't. So I was going to use a really terrible word, but it's over in an instant. But the truth is, I think it does look worse. Look at all the media back there. I think it does look worse on television than it sounds in a room. So did you notice I had a blank space right there? I said, here's what you do. You go and tell me. He said, sir, may I take 5 minutes? I'd like to make a phone call back to Mexico. I said, absolutely. Say hello to the president, please. That's who you're calling, right? Yes, sir. How did you know? I said, please be quick because I have a very important appointment coming in. So he went out, came back very quickly. Sir, it would be my great honor to supply you with 28,000 soldiers free of charge. It would be my great honor to create a new policy of stay in Mexico or remain in Mexico. And sir, it would be my great honor to have catch and release in Mexico as opposed to catch and release into the United States. And those other things, sir, we would like very much to do that also. By the way, the woman from the State Department, she almost had like a heart attack. She couldn't believe it. And she was a good woman. She was actually happy. A lot of them would be unhappy because, you know, they would have been right about the point. She was actually happy. She couldn't believe it. I did many, many things like that. I did it with Macron. You saw Macron taking advantage of Biden just the last couple of days. He's looking at him like, how dumb is this guy? What the hell is... They're landing in a parachute, and he turns around not to watch the guy landing, but to watch a tree behind him. And the new and very respected leader of Italy, I didn't know who that was. A woman came up to him and turned him, spun him around like he was a top. He had no idea where the hell he was. He's watching a parachute land, and he turns around to look at trees. And I don't like to imitate anymore because the fake news is always putting it on. My wife, I told the story yesterday. I imitate him. He can never find the stairways off a stage. And we got them all over the place. They're over here. I have emergencies right there. You can't even see them, but I have stairs all over. It's almost impossible not to find a stair. You can walk in any direction. And I imitated him. Getting lost. And do you ever notice he always goes like this? He makes a speech that lasts for about a minute and a half. People come to listen to him. You know how many people come? Like we have this massive room that's packed to the corners, and outside you got more people. Listen. He can't fill up the 8 circles. And I said, by the way, the 8 circles were meant for COVID. They're meant for COVID. You don't have to use them, but they use them as an excuse because nobody comes. So he's up, and he's before a tiny little crowd, 30, 40, 50 people. And the speech lasts for like a minute. And then he's looking for the exit, and he goes like this. He always does it. He points, and he's pointing in the right direction, and then he walks in a different direction. And I said to our great First Lady, I called her, and we had a big crowd that evening. You know what? We had 107,000 people in New Jersey 2 weeks ago. 107,000 people. Matt Gaetz was there. We had 68,000 in Alabama, 73,000 in Texas. We have the biggest crowds in the history of politics. That tells you they like what we're saying. I called our First Lady. They said, how good was that speech? Was that brilliant? Was that unbelievable? Did you see the crowd, First Lady? This is the way you talk to a wife, right? I think. Did you see the crowd, First Lady? How good was that? Nobody else could get a crowd. In the history of politics, nobody ever had a crowd like that, First Lady. She goes, but your hair looked terrible. I said, what the hell? Or she'll say something even worse. Have you gained weight? You didn't look good. But this last time, it was like a fluke. She said the speech was unbelievable. Congratulations. But what happened? You couldn't find the stairs going off the stage? So I imitated him, and the fake news said I couldn't find the stairs. Do you believe him? I said, I had no problem, First Lady. She said, well, they showed you couldn't get off the stage. You were walking into a wall. You know, usually there's a wall behind. That's good enough. And I'll walk into it. Now I don't like to do it anymore because they show it to, no, that's an imitation of Biden. But thank God we have great Secret Service. They run up on the stage and they grab him and they throw him off. They get him off the stage. Upon my inauguration, we will throw out Bidenomics and replace it with MAGAnomics. MAGAnomics. And in less than 4 years, Crooked Joe's inflation nightmare and energy price hikes, the likes of which we've never seen before, they've cost the typical American household $28,000. The monthly cost of a typical mortgage has doubled and tripled even. We had it at $2. Think of this. We were at 2.3%. And he's at probably 10%, but you can't get money. The numbers are crazy. The food numbers, the energy numbers. Yet Joe Biden has no plan. He's got absolutely no plan. He doesn't even know what the word inflation means. I don't think if you gave him a quiz, I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Doc Ronnie Johnson. Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson, congressman from Texas? He was the White House doctor. And he said I was the healthiest president he feels in history. So I liked him very much immediately. In fact, he said, if I didn't eat junk food, I would live to 200. That's what he said. But I said, Ronnie, should I take a test? He said, well, you know, it's Walter Reed. It's sort of a public hospital. If you don't do well, they're going to find out about it. I said, well, you know, like, I'm a smart person. How tough is it? He said, it gets very tough as you get to the middle of it. And I did something that he's never seen done. I aced it. I got every question right. I aced it in front of a lot of people. And I think presidents, you run for president. Now, I understand that it's not constitutional. Can you believe it's unconstitutional to have that test taken? So we have to live with guys like Biden. But you know what? I don't think we're going to live with them for long, because I've never seen such enthusiasm. I've never seen anything. We won twice. And we never had anything like what's happening now. But I'll stop Joe Biden's inflation-causing spending spree and impose an immediate moratorium on all of Crooked Joe's hundreds of billions of dollars in waste. He's wasting money at levels never seen before. He's putting all this money into the Green New scam. It's a scam, one of the greatest scams in history. Although I think Zelensky is maybe the greatest salesman of any politician that's ever lived. Every time he comes to our country, he walks away with $60 billion. And I like him. You know, on the impeachment hoax #1, he was very good. He said, no, the president didn't threaten me at all. He could have been a grandstander and said, I was threatened, right, Matt? He could have said, I was threatened. So I like him. But he's the greatest salesman of all time. He walks in. So now here's the beauty. He just left 4 days ago with $60 billion, and he gets home and he announces that he needs another $60 billion, else it never ends. It never ends. I will have that settled prior to taking the White House as president-elect. I will have that settled. Got to stop it. Would it never happen? To fight Joe Biden's inflation, I will stop the Biden migrant. This is a Biden migrant invasion. An estimated 50% of inflation has been caused by the soaring cost of housing, which is skyrocketing due to Joe Biden's tidal wave of illegal immigration and high interest rates. And they're putting these illegal aliens into luxury hotels as our great warriors lie on the streets. We have people that came into our country illegally, and they're living in hotels and even luxury hotels, and our veterans are lying in the streets. How sick is it? Sick. And by the way, when we ran the VA, we had a 92% approval rating, and we took it up from 41%, which I don't even think was 41. And now it's back to where it was. So many of the things we did, they wanted to end. We took care of our veterans at a level that nobody's ever seen before. One thing we said, if you have to wait online, and I had to get this done through Congress, if you had to wait online for more than 1 day, you go out to a private doctor, get yourself better, or we pay the bill, right? That sounds sensible. People were waiting for 3 months, for 4 months, for 2 weeks. Can you imagine you want to see a doctor, you really feel badly, and he says, good, come back in about a month and a half? People were becoming terminally ill that would have had a minor, they would have gotten a shot, or they would have taken a pill. They were becoming terminally ill. Anybody waits more than 24 hours, you couldn't see a doctor. You go to a private doctor, and we pay the bill. We had prices. We had schedules. The other thing we did is we had civil service, 9,000 people that were crooks and thugs and sadists, a lot of sadists. They enjoyed beating up our wounded warriors in less than prime time. You know, in prime time, they would have gotten the hell beat out of them, but our people were in bad shape, and they would beat them up. We had sadists. Can you believe this is a country, but it's the way it is? 9,000. I got the approval. We fired 9,000 people and replaced them with good, loving people. And we had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. But what makes you sick is to see what's happened with our soldiers and you see the way others are being treated, how about they're given a cell phone? They're given all sorts of insurance. They're given hospitalization. And what it does is that people want to come into the country. Gavin Newsom, the governor of the great Gavin Newsom. No, Gavin Newsom said, come into the United States. We will provide you with hospitalization. We will provide you with education. They're actually taking the chairs of our students, sitting there with a language that we've never even heard about. You know, there are languages that we have nobody in our country that can even speak. There are a lot of languages out there. No, he's destroyed California. If you listen to him on Sean Hannity, I listened to him, and he talks like California. The people are leaving California. I hate to say that because I have property in California. Maybe I'm hurting the value of my property, but I have to tell you, he's destroying California. And he may be the next one up. He could be the next one up. I don't think so, though, because his record is so bad. But something's happening, I do believe, because I can't believe that this gentleman is going to be allowed to run for office. And if he is, we have to have the greatest victory. We're going to take back our country. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let it happen. Think of this. A week ago, I woke up and I heard that Russia has nuclear-powered submarines in Cuba. That's 60 miles off the coast of Florida. And they have what you call destroyers, very destructive ships, actually, missile-carrying ships, numerous of them in Cuba. Now, that's a total lack of respect. And because the fake news is so fake, they don't want to report it. Because when you think about how bad that is, Putin would never have done that with me. He never would have gone into Ukraine with me. He just wouldn't have done it. And of course, when the oil price hit almost $100 a barrel, that gave him the right to do it also. He's the only one made money prosecuting a war. But all of those things would have happened. You would have never had October 7th in Israel. You would have never had that. There was no attack because Iran was broke. When Trump was president, Iran was broke. I told China, you can't buy. I told other countries, you can't buy the oil. Iran was broke. They were ready to make a deal. We would have made a deal. We would have been very fair. We would have made a deal. And now Iran is rich as hell. They have $250 billion, which they made over the last 3.5 years. They're a rich country now. It's unbelievable. They could have made a deal. We could have had a deal. If that election wasn't rigged and stolen, we would have had a deal with Iran the first week after the election. Instead, we have a very hostile country that wants nuclear weapons. Can't let that happen. We just gave $6 billion to Iran for 5 hostages. You saw that. $6 billion. $6 billion. And once you do that, then all of a sudden lots of other people are going to go missing because it's crazy. Think of it. $6 billion for 5 people. It's unbelievable. We will make the Trump tax cuts permanent and cut taxes even more for working families and small businesses. You know, it's interesting. We cut taxes, the biggest tax cuts in history, bigger than Reagan. Because Reagan had big tax cuts. We had bigger than Reagan. So the rates were cut way down for business, down to 21% from, including state and city and everything. Many companies were paying much more than 50. So they were cut way down, 21%. In fact, I'd like to bring them down further, and for the middle class, bring them down even more. They're going to let them expire. They're going to give you the biggest tax increase you've ever had, ever, by 4 times. But the amazing thing is we cut the rates way down, and we took in more money than we ever took out before. So with a lower rate, the incentive was so great. People were doing things. Businesses were thriving. So with a much lower rate, we took in more revenue than we ever took in before. It's an amazing number, right? Who would think? As part of those tax cuts, I have announced that I will eliminate taxes on tips for restaurant workers and hospitality workers and anyone else relying on tips. No more taxes on tips. No taxes on tips. None. None. In fact, on your receipt, when you get your receipt for a restaurant, you know who sent me one? Kid Rock. How good is Kid Rock? Isn't he great? But he sent me a receipt. And he wrote on the receipt, vote for Trump and you won't pay taxes on tips. He wrote that on the receipt. I said, that's very smart. That's very smart. Smart guy. So for restaurant workers, for hotel workers, for caddies, for car people, it's a lot. But anybody receiving tips, there's no more tax on tips. And I think that's going to be a great thing. You know, they earned it. A lot of people don't get tips. You don't like the service, you don't give them anything, right? You don't like the service, but somebody does a good job, they're supposed to pay tax on it. No, so we're ending that immediately, effective immediately when we get in. As we rescue our economy, we'll also seal the border and send Joe Biden's illegal aliens back home. We have no choice. It's not sustainable by anybody. We have no choice. Less than 4 years ago, I handed crooked Joe Biden the strongest, most secure border in U.S. history. We built 571 miles of border wall. We ended all catch and release. We shut down asylum fraud like nobody's ever thought even imaginable. We had remain in Mexico, safe third agreements, and Title 42 all done and all agreed by Mexico. You think that was easy? It wasn't easy. It was nasty, actually. And we paid nothing for it. Nothing. Just like we gave Macron nothing, I was going to say. He was going to put a 25% tax on everything, anybody doing business in France. I said, you can't do it. He said, oh, Donald, we would love to do this. It was passed by our legislature and our parliament, or whatever the hell he calls it. And I said, no. So I gave it to Mnuchin and some people. I said, go deal with France. Tell them they're not going to do it. And they came back. They couldn't make the deal. And then they came back again. I said, you have one more day, make the deal. They couldn't make the deal. I called up Macron. I said, Emmanuel, how are you? How are you, Emmanuel? You saw the way he was toying with Biden 2 days ago. He was toying with Biden. Got Biden to sign things. I can't even believe it, what they're signing away. But he was toying with him. And I said to him, listen, Emmanuel, if you don't drop that tax immediately, no, I cannot do that. I said, yes, you can. If you don't tax it immediately, all wine, every bit of wine, every bottle of wine and champagne that you send into the United States, we're putting a 100% tariff on that wine or champagne. We don't want your wine and champagne. We make great stuff over here. And he said, Donald, that is not fair. I said, yeah, it's not fair to charge American companies 25%. I got to stick up for the companies. They're our job producer. He said, that is not fair. I said, Emmanuel, you have 24 hours to tell me. 10 minutes would be better. He calls me up 5 minutes later. Donald, we have agreed to terminate the 25% tax on America. I do things like this. You have no idea how many deals you could make on a phone. I don't even have to spend. How about Mrs. Biden and Joe Biden? They're back and forth like it's a taxi cab from Europe. They come back. Let's go to the trial for a day. Back, forth. On Air Force One, like it's a taxi cab. It's not a taxi cab. It's serious stuff. But that's endemic of where they come with the country and how they run the country. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They really don't know what the hell they're doing. The entire world is emptying out their prisons and jails, their insane asylums, their mental institution, and our country's being turned into a dumping ground, and the entire world is laughing at us. They say, how stupid are the leaders of America? And they are stupid. Earlier this week, ICE arrested not one, not two, but 8 suspected terrorists. They're pouring in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And we're going to pay a big price. We got to get them out fast. One of the first things I'm doing, we're getting them out fast. According to reports, many of these terrorist savages entered through Joe Biden's open border, and Crooked Joe released them immediately into the United States. He set them loose to spread their terror network all across America. Under Biden, there has been this is, by the way, Border Patrol. This isn't me. Somebody would say, oh, that's Trump. This is Border Patrol. There has been a 3,000% increase in the number of people on the terror watch list crossing the southern border. 3,000%. 3,000%. The choice for every voter this November is clear. You can have a president who lets thousands of radical Islamic terrorists into our country, or you can have a president who throws radical Islamic terrorists the hell out of our country and gets them out fast. Crazy. On day one of my new administration, we will begin the largest deportation operation in American history. We have no choice. This is not sustainable. And it doesn't make me happy to say that either. And you know what's going to happen. We'll get 10 terrorists and then one woman with 2 children that are beautiful children and everything, and that'll be the front page of every newspaper. It's never an easy thing to do, but we have no choice. Dwight Eisenhower, which people don't think of him in these terms, had the largest deportation effort by far in the history of our country because he said, they're destroying our country. We can't let this happen. That was Dwight D. Eisenhower, president, much stronger president than people give him credit for. But we're going to have no question, we're going to have no problem. You know, they wouldn't take, as you know, we have MS-13, the worst killers of any gang anywhere in the world, and they were pouring into our country, and I said, we want to get them out. I said, I want to bring them back to their country because you don't want to put them in our jails. It's so expensive and everything. They killed 2 girls in Long Island. They sliced them up with a knife. They didn't want to use a gun. They didn't want to use a gun. They sliced them up with a knife. 2 young high school girls walking to school. They killed them, sliced them into pieces with a knife. They're animals. And Nancy Pelosi said, we shouldn't call them animals. These are human beings. I said, no, they're not human beings. These are animals. They sliced them up with a knife. And by the way, ICE and Border Patrol, you know, ICE came in. This was in Long Island. ICE, for some reason, they like Long Island. But ICE came in, and these are great patriots. These are tough cookies. I know some of my friends up here in the front rows. They're tough, but they're not doing the ICE. They're not doing that. And you'll see ICE come in, and they'll run into what they call a pack of MS-13 tough guys. And you'll see for 2 minutes, fists are flying and everything's flying. Who the hell wants to do that? Matt Gaetz wouldn't do it. Byron wouldn't do it. Byron's tough. He wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I think Mike Lindell might do it. I don't know. He may be the only one. He may be the only one. I wouldn't do it, Mike. And they go in there, the hands are flying, and then they grab them. They're gaga. They're all knocked out, and they put them in paddy wagons. But my people told me that we couldn't get them back into their country. So Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, they come from countries just beyond Mexico. Some come from Mexico, actually. But the countries won't take them back. They clogged up the runway so that a plane can't land. They blocked all the roads so the buses couldn't get in. And the generals came to me, sir, we have a problem. We have them all, but we can't get them back in. We haven't been able to get them back in for many, many years. During the Obama administration, they could never get them in. That was Obama-Biden. Biden didn't have a clue then either, by the way. We cannot get them in, sir. I said, really? How much money do we pay them a year for their economic development stuff? See, I was going to use another word there, but I can't do it because of the man that I respect so much. You know who it is? Franklin Graham. I can say that. Who's a great guy. He wrote me a note. President, you don't have to use foul language. You just don't have to use foul language. Your stories are so great. Your crowds are the biggest crowds ever assembled. Nobody's ever done this. You don't need foul language. I said, sometimes you do, for emphasis. He said, you don't, sir. So I'm trying it without foul language today for Franklin Graham. And I say that these stories lose 10.2% effectiveness. But I do it for Franklin Graham because he's a great guy, and those are great people. They're great people, what they do. The pastors, the preachers, the rabbis, a lot of great people. We have a lot of great people, so I'm doing that. I said, you know, maybe he's right, but think of it. So they bring these people out, and they can't get them back into their country. So I said, call the presidents of those 3 countries, inform them immediately. They get $750 million from the stupid United States. Inform them that we're not paying them any longer because they didn't fulfill all of the obligations under the agreement. Namely, they're sending a lot of, you know, they send them because they don't want them in their country because they're smart. And you know what? If it was me running those countries, I would have done it faster than them. Why wouldn't you do it? I would have cleaned out the prisons. They've only gone down 50, 60, 70%. Venezuela, crime is down 72% because they've taken all of their criminals, most of them, and they've sent them in to have the rest of them in within a year. I would have done it much faster if I were them. I would have done it much faster. I said, tell these countries that we're no longer paying them $750 million. And they did. And the next morning I get to the office early, 7:30. I get 3 calls separately but simultaneously. Mr. President, may we speak to you? I would like to speak to you. I don't understand. There must be some miscommunication. You stopped payment on all of the money you send us. But I ask why? Because you're not taking your criminals that you sent to us. They send them. By the way, they send them. You're not taking them back. Oh, sir, we would be delighted to take them back. It would be our great honor to take back 400 MS-13 savages. It would be our great honor. Sir, please send them back. We would love to take. We can fly them in. We'll send their. Ay, ay, ay. For years, they weren't able to do it. You know that, Matt Gaetz? They weren't able to get it. I said, we're not going to pay them anymore. As soon as I said that, they all called at the same time. I spoke to them separately. It was like the same conversation. We would be delighted to take them back. And that was the end of that. We sent out thousands and thousands of MS-13 back to their country. But it's out of control now because whatever we sent back, they're coming back in at levels that nobody's ever seen. I won in 2016 because of the border. We had a really bad border, but that border was nothing compared to what you have now. That border was peanuts. It was nothing. It's no wonder Joe Biden and his thugs are so desperate to stop us. They know that we are the only ones who can stop them, and they know it. And it was just announced that they withdrew their lawsuit, the laptop from hell lawsuit, right? The fake. Remember where they said it was Russian disinformation? It wasn't. They withdrew their lawsuit against the greatest mayor in the history of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, which accused him of everything under the sun regarding the laptop from hell. They withdrew it on the basis that everything that he said was true. For years, he's been fighting for himself. Everything Rudy Giuliani said was true. It was not from Russia. It had nothing to do with Russia. It only had to do with Hunter. Think of that. They try and destroy people. But think of that. It wasn't Russian disinformation. It was made-up story for election interference purposes, and I assume we're going to be talking about that at the debate. Is anybody going to be watching the debate in this room? You know, they gave me an offer that I couldn't accept. They said it's fake Tapper is the moderator. They said it's a sit down. It's a very sterile room. Nobody in. Nobody allowed in. Nobody allowed, not even your family. Nobody allowed in. There'll be no audience whatsoever. And they turn off your mics when you finish speaking. They're trying to make this very exciting, right? They turn off your mics so that you can't talk while the other man is talking, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's positive. Let him talk. But so they assumed that I would say no because, you know, you got CNN, fake news. which their camera just went off. Look, their camera just, the light just went off. The CNN. Their light just went off. I watch their light all the time. If I mention anything about voter fraud, they turn their light off because they know it's true. It's unbelievable. No, their light just went off. I can't believe I got about a minute and a half. That cameraman is toast. He's going to be fired immediately. But they gave me, it's like the mob. They gave me an offer I couldn't accept. I said, I accept. Because we want to get him to a debate. Because here's what happened. They made an offer that was so ridiculous, and they knew I was going to say no, and then they could go, they say, Biden wanted to debate, but Trump refused to debate, right? But Trump refused to debate, he wouldn't do it. But I said yes, and now they don't know what the hell to do. But remember this, all of their persecution of me and others is only happening because I'm running for president and leading very big in the polls. And since the rigged trial in New York, my numbers have increased substantially. And fundraising, by the way, is, I believe, the highest numbers in the history of politics, just like these crowds. Because you know what? The people of our country know, they know it, they watch it, they see it's fake, it's rigged. There was no crime. The greatest legal minds in the country, Alan Dershowitz, Andy McCarthy, Greg Jarrett, all of them, great. These are great legal minds, all of them, every single one of them. Greg Jarrett wrote the most beautiful report. Every single one of these legal minds, I have 15 of them. Not one of them. Jonathan Turley has been unbelievable. Great. Very talented guy. The great one. You know who the great one is? Mark Levin. Mark Levin. Mark Levin came out. He said, this is the most horrible thing. They all come out and said, there's no crime, there's no trial, this trial shouldn't be had, etc., etc. And then I couldn't defend myself because I got a gag order. This is the first time in history a president, a former president, and now the guy that beat all the Republicans in a record fashion, faster than anybody has ever done it. And now the candidate, Republican candidate, big deal, Republican candidate, that's big stuff. The President of the United States has a gag order where I'm not allowed to speak because the judge doesn't want the truth to come out. And he knows I'm the one that when I talk, they listen, people have listened. And that's why the polls went higher. I'm the only one in history who got indicted and my numbers went up. I'm the only one in history who got impeached and my numbers went up. There's never been another candidate in history. When you get indicted or you get impeached, the following events take place. You call for a microphone immediately. Please set up a microphone. Could you do it like quickly? Yes, sir. He then gets to the microphone. He goes, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great honor to serve you. But I will be leaving office. I have to be careful because they'll put this on as though I'm saying it. So I have to intersperse it with statements like, this is just sarcasm. But they get up to a microphone and they say, I'll be leaving office now. I will fight for my name and reputation. And I will bond and get closer to my family. And you never hear from the poor guy again. That's the end of him, right, Mike? That's the end of the... I've seen it about 200 times. I'm the only one that told the truth. I'm the only one that explained it. And I didn't have to because the people knew it. And they know me so well. They know me so well. They get it. I got indicted more than the legendary Alphonse Capone. Has anyone heard of Alphonse Capone? Scarface. He was so mean that if he had dinner with a person and if he didn't like him, he would kill the person. They would never find him again. Like Mike Lindell, he wouldn't like Mike. Because, you know why? He'd say, those ads, they are driving me crazy. Let's get rid of this guy. He couldn't stand those ads. Al Capone would take Mike out in 2 minutes. Mike's beautiful new wife would say, "What the hell happened to my husband? You'd never be found." He'd be buried under the World Trade Center. But think of it, Alphonse Capone Scarface, he was the meanest of them all. He had a scar that went from here to here. Scarface, the meanest, the toughest. I got indicted more than he did, and I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. Even these great scholars, Jonathan Turley said there is no crime. Andy McCarthy said there is no crime. There's no crime. There was no crime. It's a rigged deal. We have a rigged country. We have rigged elections. We have open borders. Think of it. And the court system now is under siege. It's under siege. We have a lot of problems in this country. On top of that, we could end up in World War III because we have an incompetent leader that should never have been there. He's an incompetent man. As of today, we're leading Biden nationally and in every single battleground state, including the wonderful state of Michigan. Have you heard of Michigan? Did you ever hear Biden get up and give the wrong state? This happened. If that ever happened to me, it would be the end of my political career. I always be very careful. The wonderful state of Michigan, supposedly so he's in Florida. And he goes, "It's great to be with the people of Iowa." Iowa. The palm trees. The palm trees are all over. Iowa's not known for palm. I mean, he got Idaho and Iowa mixed up, and that you can sort of understand. Of course, potatoes are different than corn. But that, Idaho, it's great to be in Idaho. No, sir, you're in Iowa. He got New Hampshire mixed up with Massachusetts. But maybe you can understand. He thought he was, he thought he was across the line. But can you imagine if I did that? So when I say, it's great to be in the wonderful state of, and I always think, I say, I better get this sucker right. I'm thinking about it. Long before I make the statement, I'm thinking about, we sure this is Michigan? You're sure? Now the fake news will report tonight, Donald Trump wasn't sure that he was in Michigan. And only the people in this room will understand how dishonest they are. The radical left Democrats rigged the presidential election in 2020, and we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election in 2024. I will tell you, 2016 was that the coolest evening maybe in history? Maybe. The only thing that's going to blow it away will be November 5th. If we win on November 5th, I think it'll be the greatest political event in history. I actually think a victory on November 5th, which actually starts much earlier. Remember, Pennsylvania, September 22nd. North Carolina, September 6th. They start earlier. You know, it's sad when you have to go months early. It's crazy. What are they doing with all these votes? What are they doing? But Michael Whatley's doing a fantastic job, along with Lara, doing a fantastic job at the RNC. I said, we don't need votes. And Charlie Kirk is helping. He's got his army of young people. These are young patriots. These are young patriots. They don't want to see happen what's been happening in our country. Thank you, Charlie. Well, thank you, Charlie. And I said to Charlie, and I said to Michael, I said to everyone, listen, we don't need votes. We got more votes than anybody's ever had. We need to watch the vote. We need to guard the vote. We need to stop the steal. We don't need votes. We have to stop. Focus. Don't worry about votes. We got all the votes. I was in Florida yesterday. Every house has a Trump sign. Trump, 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 Trump. We have We have to guard the vote. When that vote comes in, from the moment they say they're going to sign, you know, these mail-in ballots are treacherous. They're treacherous. These boxes, these lock boxes are horrible, horrible. And we'll change it, but we have to win the election in order to change it. What they're doing, they have these boxes all over the place. People are walking up. Who the hell knows what they're doing? It's a horrible thing to watch. It's a horrible thing to watch. You know, when you have a real election and you walk in and they look at you and they check your photograph and they do you can't do much. But we have, like in the state of California, they send out 38 million ballots. Who the hell knows where they're going? They do. They go to a lot of Democrat neighborhoods. And you're told you can't win. I go to California, we have 100,000 people show up. I said, why are we losing California? Why would we lose it? It's so corrupt, the whole election process. And what we want to do is we ultimately want to go to paper ballots, voter ID, one-day voting. And we want to make sure you're a citizen of this country. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor because I'm being indicted for you. Thank you very much. Never forget, our enemies want to take away my freedom because, quite simply, I will never let them take away your freedom, and I won't. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just standing in their way, and I always will. From the very first day that it's we, not me, it's we, that we take back the White House from crooked Joe Biden, I believe we're going to have the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. We're going to get it settled and stop the death. Under my leadership, we had no new wars. Hillary Clinton, she used to say, look at him, listen to him, he's going to start wars. No, I stopped wars. We defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We brought our troops back home. I had no new wars. I started no wars, first time in 78 years. Instead of a globalist warmonger, and that's what you have. In the White House, you finally had a peacemaker at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. These terrible wars, these horrible wars that were started, they never end. We call them the endless battles. Biden's weakness and failure are putting us in grave danger. As president, I will restore peace through strength. In my next term, we will build a great iron dome over our country like Israel has. A dome like has never been seen before, a state-of-the-art missile defense shield that will be entirely built in America and create jobs, jobs, jobs. It will be the greatest dome anywhere in the world. Israel has a dome. Why shouldn't we have a dome? We're going to have the greatest and most sophisticated. And by the way, Ronald Reagan wanted a dome. He was right, but the technology wasn't anywhere near that. You could never have done it then. Today we have technology. Look at Israel the other day. 300 missiles shot, and everyone but one was knocked out of the air. 300. To further secure America's future and create opportunity for young people, I will end Joe Biden's war on crypto, and we will ensure that the future of crypto and Bitcoin will be made in America. If we don't do it, China will. If we don't do it, other countries will. I will always protect Medicare and Social Security for our great seniors. And you know, your Social Security and Medicare are under siege because of the people coming over the border. And the people coming over the border, all those millions of people, they're inflicting tremendous harm to our black population and to our Hispanic population. Those people are suffering because their jobs are being taken, their hospitals are being taken, their schools are being taken. They're the ones that suffer most. You know who else suffers? Unions. No union's going to be able to be sustained like this. We will end the weaponization of our government. We will bring back law and order to our country. We will take care of our police officers and our great law enforcement. Joe Biden is out the other day trying to claim that crime is down, but actually crime is way up. They don't report crime properly anymore, as you probably have heard. Crooked Joe is citing statistics that no longer include data from 30% of the country, including the biggest and most violent cities. Oh, I see. That's nice. Meanwhile, Joe Biden still supports no cash bail and sanctuary cities. I'm probably the only one that has to pay bail. Think of it. I'm the only one, I think. He's responsible for the deaths of countless African Americans from crime. And he also devastated black families in 1994 with the crime bill. Super predators, remember? That was Joe Biden came up with that. Super predators. The black people have to remember when they go to vote. That was 1994 crime bill. Super predators, Joe Biden. When I'm president, we will end sanctuary cities. We will once again support our police. We will be going and rebuilding our cities into beacons of hope, safety, and beauty better than they ever have been before. We will take over our horribly run capital in Washington, D.C. We will clean it up, renovate it, rebuild our capital city that no longer will we allow it to be a nightmare of murder and crime. It's a nightmare of murder and crime in our capital. You leave Michigan, you want to go see the Washington Monument, the Jefferson Memorial. You want to see something in Washington, you end up getting killed. You end up getting shot, beat to a pulp. But our capital will become the most beautiful capital anywhere in the world, and it will be safe from crime. We owe that to our country. And we will replace the people that are running our capital, who are running it into the ground, who, by the way, were offered 10,000 soldiers or National Guard on January 6th, along with Nancy Pelosi. Oh, did you see Nancy Pelosi? Her daughter's in trouble. Her daughter is a semi-professional photojournalist, so she calls herself. And she has Nancy on tape saying it was Nancy's responsibility to secure the Capitol. I hope the congressmen and women remember that little tape that was released 2 days ago, because the fake news doesn't want to talk about it very much. She took full responsibility for it. She's angry as hell at her daughter. She may cut her daughter off from all of the millions and millions of dollars that she scammed as a congressperson. Think of it. She has better returns on her money than the smartest people in the history of Wall Street. Look at that. I wonder how she did that. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto the lives of our children. And I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate. And I will keep men out of women's sports. And I will fully uphold our great Second Amendment. NRA endorsed me, gave me their full endorsement. Thank you to the NRA. We will protect innocent life, and we will restore a thing called free speech. It's being taken away from us by these radical thugs. And I will secure our elections at a level never seen before. And as I said, our goal will be one-day voting, paper ballots, proof of citizenship, and voter ID. But we have to win. Republicans have to win. We want a landslide that is too big to rig. Remember that, too big to rig. How do you win it? There's a point at which they can't cheat. We want a landslide that is too big to rig. You know, we're leading in places that we've never led for 40, 50 years. Minnesota, we're leading by 2. We're leading in Virginia. We're leading in a lot of states that were not states that people even think about. No, we want a landslide. Remember the term, too big to rig. If you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done near the destruction to our country as Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done. Take the 10 worst, add them up. He's worse than the 10 worst put together. The only good thing is Jimmy Carter is happy because his presidency was brilliant by comparison to Biden. So if you want to save America, I'm asking everybody to go out and, quote, swampthevoteusa.com to make a plan to vote either by mail or early in person or on election day. Get out and vote and watch your vote. If you want to volunteer to help us turn out voters in your neighborhood, sign up. Get trained at TrumpForce47.com. You got to watch your vote because they destroy votes. They terminate your vote. They do all sorts of things. Watch your vote. You can do it. In conclusion, from Marquette to Midland, from Lansing to Flint, and from Grand Rapids to right here in Detroit, we stand on the shoulders of red-blooded Michigan patriots who laid the railroads, worked the factories, tilled the fields, forged the steel, fought the battles and won the victories that built the Motor City and made America into the greatest and most powerful nation in the history of the world. And we're going to bring back your auto industry at a level greater than it was 30 years ago. But now we are a nation in serious decline. We are a failing nation. We are a nation that has lost its confidence, willpower, and strength. We are a nation that has quite simply lost its way. But we are not going to allow this horror to continue. Less than 4 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. With the right leadership, every disaster Joe Biden has created can be fixed and can be fixed quickly. Every problem can be solved and every wrong can be rectified, and we will do it all so fast. You will be so proud of your country again. You will walk outside and your chest will be out there. You will be having that beautiful red hat. We have everybody with that beautiful, beautiful red hat that says, "Make America Great Again." We love it. By this time next year, America's borders will be shut, sealed, and secure. And again, people will come into our country, but they'll come in legally. They're going to come in legally. And by this time next year, inflation will be in full retreat. Our economy will be roaring back. Optimism will be surging. American pride will be soaring. The American dream will be thriving again for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. Law and justice will reign all throughout our land. Freedom will be restored. The flame of liberty will be burning bright. Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country, will be a fading, horrible memory of the past. And our great silent majority and the once forgotten men and women of our country will be the ones shaping America's magnificent future when I am the 47th president of the United States. Because we are all Americans, and together we will show November 5th to be the most important day in the history of America. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. And together, we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. We will make America free again. And we will make America great again. Thank you, Michigan. God bless you. Thank you very much. God bless you.